If it took Congress to do that, then these things wouldn't have been solved.
We out here in these streets.
I'm not Republican nor Democrat. I'm Christocratican. I say that because I need to make sure that everybody understands this disclaimer, because people be trying to get on me with my politics. My politics is just common sense, y'all. Feel me? Woo! But anyways, I want to talk about this Iran thing that Trump just happened with Soleimani. If you guys don't already know, Soleimani was and this is for some of y'all who don't pay attention to politics, but need to know what's going on, because we want to make sure that you guys are set up for whatever happens in the world. Look, obviously war happens, period. So, not saying we're going to war. It looks like we're not, because of the way President Trump handled the Soleimani situation. Salami is what he called him, which is funny. But anyways, that man's funny. But basically, Soleimani was the Iran top general, but he was funding terrorism, has been doing it for 7 years, or at least for the 7 months, I do know, but he's been doing it for a while. He was known to have been funding everyone from Al-Qaeda to ISIS to now the new caliphate, all this terrorist stuff. So there's a lot of facts that are being put out on the news that are not facts. A lot of, I should say opinions, because if you listen to it, it's all opinions. I feel that he did the wrong thing, and why didn't he do this, and why didn't he do that? First of all, the president has executive power that's given by the Constitution to either declare war or to not declare war. He is the commander in chief. When it comes to the military, he does not have to consult the Congress for action. But what he does do is have to brief them within a certain time. So let's get that one thing out of the way, because I know that CNN and some of these people are reporting as if he's supposed to get the permission of the Democrats. And the thing is, I wanted to tell you, reason why that is because you see how Congress is. They can barely make a decision. If it took Congress to make a decision on taking action, a military action on somebody who is killing somebody, or somebody who is doing terrorist activity, or somebody who is killing their own people, like Saddam, if it took Congress to do that, then these things wouldn't have been solved. And they would have probably killed more people by the time Congress would have voted all agree, because obviously they don't agree. And it's not that they don't agree about the action. It's if I don't like you, I don't want to agree with your plan unless I come up with the plan. You know, a lot of people like that, don't you? I didn't come up with the plan, but I don't like you. So no matter what you do, you're wrong. You're wrong. You know, I get tired of that. I get tired of telling people stuff and then they act like I'm talking foreign until they think that they come up with the plan. But hint, hint, I'm not going to talk about that. But anyways, so that's one thing that we have to take in consideration. And then two, we have to take in consideration that no matter what people are trying to say, oh, we're trying to avoid war with Iran and trying to avoid war, we're never going to avoid war with any country who just wants to kill us. They're going to find a way. Giving them money is not going to help them. They're just going to make weapons to kill us. Like, what do you think the money that Obama gave them went towards? Making weapons. Come on, y'all. Ain't nobody dumb. Like, you don't have to, even though they've proven that, you don't have to prove that to know that. Either way, even if they did not take that money to do that, they're still making weapons to kill us. Like, so we're going to give money to a country who's making weapons to kill us. But that's a whole other situation. Obviously, Iran has different politics. At times, they have presidents that are pro-America, and then they have presidents that are not. This current one is not pro-America. He hates America, and he wants to kill America. He oppresses his people. So Soleimani was his man. He was the man that killed the people if they didn't do what the government said. He was the man that shut everybody up, who controlled everything. Everybody was scared of this man. This man was powerful. But he was in Iraq at the time that Trump took him out. Doing what? Helping with the protests and the march on the embassy that they call a protest, but it was actually a riot, and it was a setup for an attack. They knew this, so this is one of the reasons why they took him out. So you got to understand this, guys. When obviously President Trump ran on not going to war, and he doesn't want to, and he keeps saying that. Look, I'm trying to avoid one, but that doesn't mean he has to show himself weak. At the end of the day, we know this even in regular society. When you have a bully that's coming up against you, there's nothing you're going to give him. And look, and I know this because I used to be bullied when I was in middle school. There was nothing that I'm going to give him. I gave this bully my lunch at times. I tried to befriend him, give him some money, and guess what? He still bullied me. He still fought me, and he still took me. He still put me in my locker. Don't laugh at me. Yeah, I was stuffed in my locker a few times. No matter what I gave him, no matter what I tried to do to befriend him, I tried to do the peaceful way, he still bullied me. There are some people who are just going to be bullies. There are some countries who are just not going to like us because we have a different way of thinking, and they're going to want to kill us. Because our society is a free society in effect, especially when it comes to communism and socialism, or dictatorship, like Iran is, because our ideas, they ultimately threaten what they're trying to do in their country. When people see how free people are over here, and we're able to make money, and you got people over there who are poor and not making money because the government won't let them, what are they going to think? They're going to say, hey, my government sucks. And eventually they're going to revolt. So Iran does a lot to keep their people from revolting. So we cannot sit here and make Soleimani some hero or some general who was doing everything right over in Iran like the mainstream media is doing, because he wasn't. He was funding the terrorists. They found that is intelligible knowledge that's been proven. Matter of fact, they knew this back in Obama day. This is why the Obama's administration gave them that money. They gave them like something $1 billion. It was $1 billion, over $1 billion. Then they knew it then. They knew what was going on, but they did not have a plan of taking them out. And therefore, more and more Americans were getting killed. More and more embassies were getting ransacked, and terrorists were, and bases were getting attacked by these terrorists. So, because they don't like us. And then funny things is, this man is not in Iran, he's in Iraq. That's not even his country. Iran has been at war with Iraq and Afghanistan for years because they have two different Muslim ideologies. I think the other ones were the Sunnis or something. I don't quote me on that. I don't have the facts on that. It's not in front of me. So we have to start looking at things from this perspective where, yes, okay, fine, I don't like Trump, if that's you, or I do like Trump. I don't like Hillary, if that's you. I do like Hillary. But we have to stop looking at what we don't like about people and to start understanding the facts about what's going on. And this goes with the topic earlier about living in these fantasy worlds. Everything is not about going against black people or going against people who are not white. It's not all about race. Matter of fact, the funny thing is, I was looking at this video, it's never been about race. It's always been about money, rich or poor. I was looking at the history of slavery, and there's a part of the history of slavery, and this is helping us get out of this fantasy land. There's a history of slavery that we forgot. That one, there were free blacks in the South. This is one of the things that nobody wants to talk about. And they were slave owners. So it wasn't about race. It didn't become about race until civil rights, where it became about the whites and blacks. And that's because blacks were rising up and they were coming against what? White people. So then you created a whole new thing of races. Because there were also slave owners who were actually good to their slaves. It wasn't that they were black that they were slaves. It was because that they are slaves. They were my property. And when my property revolts, I'm going to be mad. The funny thing is, the first slaves in America were white, according to this history. And I know some of y'all going to be like, oh, that ain't true. That ain't true. Who wrote that and who did all that? You know what? Who wrote any of it? If you want to question who wrote that, you need to question who's telling us about our slavery. For all we know, we weren't slaves. Because somebody wrote that, right? So, but the thing is, we already know that Europeans were enslaving Europeans over in Europe. So you didn't think they didn't bring that over here? Of course they did. But it wasn't profitable. Then I heard, the rest of the history was they started trying to enslave the natives over here, but the natives kept doing what? Revolting. And because they knew the lay of the land, it was hard to enslave them because this is their land. They know how to get in and out, and they were losing. So they were trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to keep this industry up? They went to Africa. So we need to get out of, black folks need to get off this slavery high horse and thinking we're the only ones that have been oppressed. Yes, we may have been oppressed in America only the longest out of Americans, because we can go back to history of the Jews and how long they were enslaved. Let's go biblical. We can talk about how the Persian took over that whole region. You know who the Persians are? Now they Iran. Oh, I bet y'all didn't know that either. You know, so we can look at this. So we got to get out of. I'm getting all off topic, but I wanted to talk about I did kind of go back to Iran, but I wanted to get these facts out. We got to get out of the fantasy land and thinking that all this emotional stuff. We're so oppressed. We're not that oppressed, people. Let's get out of the fantasy land and start looking at the reality of the things that are going on in our world and in our country, because ultimately it affects us. If we go to war, Iran has nukes. We in trouble. I'm sure they'll probably shoot them out of the sky before they get here because of our technology. But the whole point that it can happen. If they can knock down the towers, they can definitely do something to hurt us. So let's pay attention, y'all, and let's get out of this fantasy world. Hey, if you like this video and more, make sure you're logging on to YouTube, the Wiley Life, also Speak Music Radio, also Cypher on the Block. All those platforms have different content on there. Obviously, Speak Music Radio is my radio station, which my Cypher on the Block is featured on. And there's other content there from BB Talks and a lot of different things. Interviews that we've done at Stellar Awards, as well as on the Wiley Life. It's all the content that I create. And Cypher on the Block is specifically this podcast. Make sure the whole podcast is in full. That's the only thing that's posted on there. All the clips are posted on the Wiley Life. So make sure you're subscribing, and pushing the notification bell, because I want to know that you make sure you're supporting. If you like everything I'm doing, support me by going to my Patreon account. That's The Wiley Life Patreon. The Wiley Life. Look that up. Become a Patreon. There's going to be some Patreon exclusive content that are going to be going. If you become a Patreon at certain levels, you will get gifts from my merch store. My merch store. You can also support me that way. If you just want to go get some merch, you can support me that way. That's on teespring.com/stores/The Wiley Life. Make sure you follow me on all of my social medias. That's Chris Conscious on all social medias. That's The Wiley Life and Cypher on the Block. Please, please, please. And we out here in these streets.